the one.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome along to the wilds of Suffolk. I'm out here yet again doing what I do, walking along in beautiful locations such as this, giving you my thoughts and opinions on things that are happening in the world in the public consciousness. If it's your first time here, welcome. Hope you enjoy what I'm doing today. If you're a returning subscriber, don't know how many there are, I'm sorry. There's a lot. Welcome back. Welcome one and all. I hope you enjoy what I'm talking about today. So, it's been a while, for those of you who've been following the journey with me, been along on this journey with me. It's been a while, with a work schedule and my entire life is in upheaval as always, and I had surgery about a week and a half ago, so I'm only just emerging from my cocoon to get out and start doing things again, which is why I'm out here today, because I've been bursting at the seams literally to get out and record this video, but like I say, with everything else going on and surgery, that didn't help. Nothing serious, don't worry, I'm fine. It's just minor, well, not really minor, but surgery all the same. Just it took some time to recover, so I'm back and I'm out here sharing my thoughts and opinions. So let's get on with it rather than me talking in circles. So today I'm entitling this video On Demand. Now, with everything I've been talking about over these years that I've been doing these videos, it's been what, 4 years now, 4.5 years, it's a long time. On and off, obviously periodically when I can. Oh, got a bit of thunder. 4 years I've been doing this, and I've brought up a range of different topics. It's obviously it all started with COVID. But I've been talking about a range of different topics because what I want to do is bring into public light a different perspective on how we look at information that we're provided with. That is the propaganda, if you will, another way of looking at different perspective of what's happening in the world, of how I perceive things to be based on my life and my experiences and what I look at, obviously. So I'm influenced by everything that I've come into contact with my entire life, has had a bearing on how I think about things. The information that comes to me through the channels that I watch mainstream, I watch real far gone conspiracy stuff, and other content creators that are talking about their experience, and I'm trying to base an opinion based on everything that I've seen. So it's a different perspective. I'm not saying it's the truth. I don't want you to accept what I say as truth. I want you to, if you care to, listen to what I have to say, and then take that into consideration when you're basing your opinions on what you're coming into contact with as well. That's what I'm here for. Nothing else. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not trying to make money off it. I'm just out here speaking my mind and relieving myself of that burden, that weight of, oh my God, what am I going to do with this information? And it is, in a way, it's cathartic for me to be able to come out and speak my mind, even though I am speaking to myself. Of course, you wonderful people listening and feeding back to me what I'm saying. But essentially, I'm out here performing a soliloquy. For those of you who joined me for that video, I loved it. I thought it was one of the best ones I've done. Soliloquy, great word, and I love words. Now, on demand. Let's get back to the topic. The topic for today, on demand. Now, there's a reason I'm doing this today, and we're living in an increasingly on-demand society. So everything is at your fingertips. Your phone allows you to find information on demand. Wonderful, I think we can all agree. While we're on that part of the topic, many years ago, it was thought that people make bad decisions because of a lack of information, of a lack of knowledge, or a lack of education, if you will. That's why people made bad decisions, because they didn't have the information at hand. You had to go and look in an encyclopedia to educate yourself, or go to a place of learning, wherever that might be. Now, information is at our fingertips. Are people any smarter? No. So, as good as the internet is, it doesn't make people smarter to have everything that you always wanted at your fingertips, because how do you define reality? I'm using that word again. There's that word again. I can't believe this is real. How do you define what's real and what's fake and what's propaganda and what's fake news, right? So, a little bit of an offshoot there, but we'll carry on. Now, on demand, we've got information on demand, right there at your fingertips, constantly, for better or for worse. We have food on demand. You know, you go to the shop, it's always there. You know, you want a pizza, make a phone call. You want a burger, whatever you want, it's on demand. We're living in an on-demand society now, which is wonderful. I think we can all agree that living in a society where anything you want is available all the time is wonderful. But it also has its drawbacks, which is what I'm going to talk about today. Because the problem with having everything all the time when you want it is not always good. You know, in London, well, I used to live in London for 18 years, drugs are on demand. Like, literally, you can make a phone call to a drug dealer and have drugs in your hand within 20 minutes. Is that good? Well, if you go for a party, maybe. But, you know what I mean? There's good and bad to everything. Now, for those of you who are watching this, no doubt the people who are watching this are probably on the same page when I start to talk about why I think there's detriment to having everything on demand. Will know, but for the people who don't know, is the reason I'm going to cover this today. And it is, like I say, different way of thinking about it, and I want you to consider it, not the truth, my perspective, okay? Now, for those of you who have been following along the bouncing ball through our propaganda, fake news, society we're living in, would know about the World Economic Forum, or the WEF. I'm sure you've heard of it, even if you're not a conspiracy theorist. The World Economic Forum, where the world leaders, millionaires and billionaires, go to decide how the rest of us are going to live. They have their meetings and they decide what the direction is of the planet. Social engineers. They decide what is good, what's bad, and how they want us to live, based on their perspective of what they think is good and bad. Okay. Now, one of the main things that came out of the WEF was an advertisement. Well, it wasn't an advert, it was like an infomercial, if you will, where the key phrase was, "You will own nothing and you'll be happy." Now, people have been pondering what that actually means. You know, what does it mean to own nothing and be happy? I mean, how can you own nothing and be happy? And I own my house. I'm happy with that. Why would I give that up, right? Now, in a society where we are now, where we have financial issues, to say the least, high inflation, spiraling interest rates, well, they're going up now, they're bringing them down just before the election, of course, in America, to make it, oh, isn't the economy wonderful after 4 years of trying to fix Trump's economy now? That wonderful person, Kamala Harris, she's going to fix everything. And you see what she's done? Now she's just proving that she can bring down the interest rates because now they've fixed the economy. So inflation's now under control, so now we can bring down the interest rates. Okay. Now, we're going to do a little bit of an economics lesson for those of you who are not that way inclined, but just a little bit, not too much. If you need to have a bit of more of a lesson, go back to some of my older videos, you can see what I've said in the past. But the issue being, when you lower interest rates, when the interest rates are lower, more people borrow, which means more money is created into the economy. When more money is created into the economy, that means you have more money chasing fewer goods, which means inflation rises. Are you with me? Okay. Now, there's a counter argument to that as well. There's a guy called George Gammon who was doing a talk with another guy called Mike Maloney, who's a gold bug, who thinks we should go back to a gold standard. And George Gammon made the point, I think it's a valid point, that if banks are lending money into the economy, then initially it's inflationary because it takes time for that money to start producing an income. So if for instance, somebody goes to the bank and wants to borrow money to start a business that's going to employ people and generate money and tax going into the economy, and tax revenues going into the government, then it's going to actually lower inflation because you've got more goods and services being produced. Okay? So, currently what we have is an economy where the government's printing trillions into existence to send off for things like war, which is, I think, pointless, but you can look at that a different way and say, well, you know, war damages, blows things up. Chaos theory, okay, where you have things get broken and then you have other people that will create businesses that will go and rebuild after the war, which is how the German economy recovered after the Second World War, because the country was bombed to shit, ruined. So the German politicians invested into the country to build the economy back up by investing into industry that creates employment and generates more goods and services that you can then sell to generate an income. Making sense? Okay, so now we've got that out of the way, we'll push that to one side. So we have the World Economic Forum saying you'll own nothing and be happy. Now, in a society where we have everything is on demand, okay, you don't own anything, right? So on-demand films, okay, so Netflix, Prime Video, you know, all these sort of movie providers or TV show providers where they're providing content for you that you pay for, okay? Now, back when I was a bit younger, you would go, like every year I used to go to like a store like HMV here in the UK, but probably where you are, it's probably a different name, a store where they sold records, CDs, DVDs, those kind of things. We actually had a physical product that you could buy and own it, and it's yours. And then when you lived your life and your day was done, then your children could own that thing as well, so they could play DVDs after you were dead. So you owned it. Now with on-demand services like iTunes, you know, these services where you movies on demand, you are essentially renting it. You don't own the music that you buy. Okay, so if you go onto iTunes, for instance, I'm not going to just pick on iTunes because they're all exactly the same, and you purchase an album, when you die, that doesn't get passed on to your children. They don't own it. It dies with you because the subscription is in your name, and it's a subscription to an on-demand service. So you can listen to it on demand, but only while you're alive. Obviously, you can't listen to it when you're dead. Well, I hope not. But, you know, there's no ownership there. Now, they want to take that to the next level, right? So when you start talking about, well, obviously we've heard that everything is going to destroy the planet. And, you know, I've mentioned this about climate change 1,000 times on this channel. We've done lots of talks about it, where we have two opposing viewpoints coming out of the same people's mouths. So you have them saying, there's too many people in the world, okay? That's the first one. Too many people in the world, which is causing the world to collapse and the environment and blah, 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 right? But in the next breath, you hear them saying, the birth rates in the West are declining, so we need to import more people to keep the economy going, that are going to have more babies. Makes perfect sense. So an economy thrives on people generating wealth, paying taxes so the government can keep going. If you have less people, the economy goes down the toilet. Okay? Declining birth rates means the economy is going to go down. Believe it or not. So, the next step in this progression of on demand is, well, do you really need to buy the things that you're buying? Okay? For instance, let's just say, for instance, you want to make pasta one day, so you need a pasta maker. You know, one of those machines that you roll the dough through, makes the pasta for you, right? You want to make pasta, but yeah, machines are like 200 quid, or whatever that is in your money, wherever you are. You know, do you really need to buy that, or could you just rent it for the time that you need it? It's a great idea, right? Great idea, because you're maybe only going to make pasta once, or maybe twice. Now you can take that out into infinity and beyond. Because if you say, this is the other thing, car sharing, okay? So car sharing is, you don't own a car because you don't need a car every day, especially if you're in London. You know, you catch the bus, you catch public transport, or you ride a bicycle or whatever, you know, same as what they're doing in the Netherlands right now. So it's car sharing. So it's compulsory car sharing. So you can't own a car and you just use the car for the periods that you need them, or so you're sharing. It's, you know, communism, for want of a better word. And, you know, that goes on and on and on. And, you know, it's like, well, do you really need that lounge room? If you're going to work all day, you don't need your lounge room. You could have someone using that lounge room when you're not there as a meeting space or something, right? Or, you know, you could have people working night shift could sleep in your bed during the day while you're at work, right? You don't need to own it. And then why own a house? Why not just rent the house? Rent the house, and then you don't have to worry about all those pesky things like, you know, fixing things around the house, because then the owner has to do that, right? It's like leasing cars nowadays. You know, when you businesses, rather than buying a car, you know, that would be an asset to the company, or a vehicle for a truck or van or whatever. You lease it. You don't own it. You lease it, and then you give it back after 3 years, right? So this whole idea of no ownership comes from on demand, okay? Now, you might think, well, that's a good idea. It's a great idea, right? But here's the kicker. Who are you paying the rental fee to? Who owns it? Now, what we see, I live here in the UK. I avidly watch what's happening around the rest of the world as well. Now, what we saw in Hawaii, when they had the wildfires that just sprung up out of nowhere, definitely not direct energy weapons. Don't ever mention that. Definitely not that. Okay, it wasn't that. And that whole blue roof laser thing, obviously that's a complete fabrication. Don't listen to any of those conspiracy theorists talking about that nonsense. But you saw, is it Lahaina? Not positive, don't quote me. In Hawaii, where you had these massive fires, wiped out everything. And then the government said, well, to make it safe for people, we're going to take your land back. What do they call it? Through eminent domain, something like that. Don't quote me again. And then they're going to sell it on to developers who wanted to buy the property in the first place, so they can have it, property on Hawaii. Who wouldn't want property in Hawaii, right? So, who owns it? Now, when you look at what's going on, close down the society, close down the economy for a couple of years for a flu. Yes, and I said that, a flu. The same numbers, by statistically, same amount of people died in 2020 as every other year of the flu. Okay, but the statistics were manipulated in that if you had a motorbike accident and you died, and they post-mortem swabbed you with a test kit that was testing positive for mangoes and goats and motor oil, was testing positive. If you tested positive after you had a motorbike accident and died, post-mortem, then they declared it a COVID death because you died with COVID, not of, with. And there's a distinction to be made there because you're using words to change the result. Same as statistical manipulation through wording, okay? So if you go back to 2020, listen to the news reports and listen to how they described the death numbers, which was everywhere, of course. This is how many people died with COVID, with, not of, with. And then they can get around and say, well, we didn't say all those people died of COVID. They said they died with, because you had a test designed. Well, the guy who originally designed the test, a guy called Kerry Mullins, I think it is. Kerry Mullins, I think his name was, won the Nobel Prize for it, for the PCR test. Okay, he said the PCR should never be used to diagnose anything, because if you use a PCR to diagnose and you run it through enough cycles, you can find anything you want. But that's what we were using, remember, PCR tests. The inventor who won a Nobel Prize for his invention, said you should never use it to diagnose anything. So when we go back and we look at the fake news saying died with, based on a test that's fraudulent, we know the numbers were manipulated. So you close down an economy, people struggle financially because they don't have work, they can't pay their mortgages. Who's buying the properties off the people who can't afford them anymore? Now, we'll carry on, okay? In America, it's a lot of BlackRock. You know, BlackRock owns the world, remember that? BlackRock is also the company that has the contracts to go and rebuild Ukraine after they bombed the shit out of it, just as a side note. Not related at all. So, and I've mentioned before that BlackRock uses a algorithm called Aladdin. It's an algorithm that they have set to world domination. Okay, so if you want to own the world, how do you do it? How do you do it? You have a huge amount of money that is generated through backdoors out of central banks. Vast amounts of money. You're talking about trillions, tens of trillions, quadrillions, really. If you're talking about the derivative markets, you create all these derivative products. It's all financially corrupt and deliberate in order for them to control the world. Okay, so if you inflate the currency, people's worth is in their properties. Okay, so when people's property value goes up, they think, "Woohoo! I'm rich." Not realizing that if you sell your house, you're going to go and buy another one. You know? Oh, but you can just rent. It's easier. You can take all that massive profit that you've made from your property, and you can rent, and you get a bunch of money to spend on shopping. You know, £1 million will probably buy you a loaf of bread in a couple of years. But so you've got these massive corporations that are buying up all the properties, and you have massive corporations that are producing products for the masses. Now, if you wipe out a portion of the population, whoop, they're gone. Then it makes it a lot easier to provide on-demand services to people, the fewer people, because you don't have to have so many cars because everyone's sharing them, right? So when we're talking about, you know, this whole electric car debate, where, you know, people like myself and a lot of other people have brought up the fact that how is it green when you're digging up the earth? You're digging up the earth to take these rare earth minerals out to create batteries. You know, lithium and you know, all the cobalt and all those other things are required to create the current iteration of batteries. How is that green? Well, if you don't need so many, because, well, there's not going to be so many people and they're all going to be sharing anyway. You know, as a side note, car batteries. Samsung made an announcement. I don't know whether I mentioned this before, but I'm going to anyway. Samsung made an announcement 2 weeks ago that they have created a solid state battery for cars. Solid state, I've done a little bit of research on this, layers of silver and graphene. And it's the benefit being that Samsung has said it goes twice the distance of a current Tesla battery, twice the distance, that's about 700 miles for a charge, and it recharges in 7 minutes, or 9 minutes, I think it was, 9 minutes, something like that. Now, there's a lot of speculation as to how much silver is in these batteries. Some people have suggested a kilo. Some people have suggested it's less than that, but the point being, the silver's going into it, okay? Silver's also going into every bomb that's being dropped around the world at the moment. Silver's going into solar panels, massive amount of solar panels being produced by China to supply the rest of the world, and silver is still half the price it was back in the 80s. No manipulation whatsoever, just so you understand. Now, if you look at that scenario that I started with this whole on-demand society, this whole on-demand, then with what I've been talking about with you won't own anything and you'll be happy, would play out. That's how it plays out. When you have everything being owned by massive corporations or companies that own vast amounts of real estate or properties, or businesses that produce things. The BlackRock and Vanguard, State Street own nearly everything. They've got a part ownership in everything. So basically what they do is they manipulate the markets so that they drop the markets down so they can buy nice and cheap. Then they bring them back up again, and they wash out all the traders and all the people doing shorts. And if you've got a program that allows you to see every trade anywhere in the world and what the stop losses are and where they're looking to get out of the market, then you can manipulate that through the vast amount of money that you control through your corporation, like BlackRock and Vanguard. They own each other, by the way. And who owns Vanguard? Nobody knows. Nothing to worry about, though. Look over there, squirrel. Okay, so whilst the concept and the idea of on demand is wonderful, what happens? Well, the average person would think it's wonderful. Oh, I don't have to maintain my house. I can just give the car back after 3 years of leasing and get a brand new one. Why wouldn't I do that, right? Pass the machine. Why do I pay 200 quid when I can pay £3 to have it for the day? Or, while that sounds wonderful, if you've got, you can't own it, but they can, how fair is that? If I say, okay, I'm going to set up a business where I'm going to rent out. No, you can't do that. You see, because then we go back to, I was having this discussion with someone today about capitalism. This is capitalism, Chris. You don't understand. This is how capitalism works. But it's not. It's crony capitalism. And there's laws in place called antitrust laws that are supposed to govern monopolies in industries, where you have one company can buy out the competition or can threaten the competition, or worst case scenario for someone who invents a car that runs on water, for instance, they had a really bad traffic accident and just died in the car. Terrible. Or they went hiking or were out for a walk in the forest and got shot by a hunter. Wouldn't that be a shame? This is the thing. It's like the whistleblower that was blowing the whistle on Boeing and the quality standards of Boeing dropping, shot himself in the head when he was going to testify and give evidence against Boeing. The same company who stranded some astronauts in space, by the way. Now, speaking of space and astronauts, I spoke to my friend Michael Janest. Hi, Michael, if you're watching. Over in America, he's a NASA engineer that I had on my channel a few times. Spoke to him about this, and he said, well, for those astronauts who are up there, they're not worried, because then they get to stay in space longer. They're happy. But the fact of the matter comes back to, they were stranded in space by a company that has been outed by whistleblowers who were engineers who were blowing the whistle on their safety standards. Then he goes and shoots himself in the head the day that he's going to testify. So if you think that they're not above suiciding someone to make sure that they maintain their government contracts or maintain their business model, then you're delusional if you don't think they'd resort to that. Not that I'm saying that they did, just saying they could. But it's playing with words because, died with COVID, you understand? He died of suicide. Of course he did. Now, These antitrust laws are supposed to be in place so you don't have these monopolies. But it's clear we do, because the politicians are paid to look the other way, and the governing bodies are paid to look the other way, while these corporations do whatever they want. The world is not run by politicians. It is run by corporations. You need to understand that. If you can't get your head around that, the rest is irrelevant. You need to understand corporations and banks run the world. Each country is a corporation. So it is. So we're living in this on-demand society. Most of it's wonderful. What happens though when you have these corporate entities go to war with each other. And we are, whether you like it or not, we're in a war. We've been in a war for years. You know, most wars start out as economic and between corporations that are saying, no, we want it our way. And then the other corporation says, no, we want it our way. And then it's this massive backwards and forwards. Well, we'll try and destroy you financially. We'll try and destroy you financially. You see what's going on in the world? Tariffs. Oh, we're going to lock you out of the banking system, Iran, because we don't trust you. This is, Iran, we're told, is the biggest terrorist organization in the world, terrorist funder of terrorism in the world. We're told by everybody, right? You agree? Iran is the biggest terrorist funding organization in the world, the boogeyman, obviously, other than Russia, of course. But Iran, they're the Houthis and Hamas and bullshit. But yet, didn't Barry Soetoro, and his husband Michael, didn't he give Iran $6 billion in cash that was flew in there on pallets of cash that got flown into Iran when he was in power? Oh, but it was to stop their nuclear program, Chris. Of course it was. So if I say I'm going to start a nuclear program, are they going to give me $6 billion as well? In cash? No. And I wouldn't, by the way, start a nuclear program. I'm not trying to frighten anybody. That's not who I am. I'm just a guy who walks in the forest talking to myself. I'm a crazy person. I'm not a crazy person. So what happens when these corporations go to war with each other and decide that we have to wipe out the other corporation and we have to take their assets? Much like a country invading another country. Corporation invading another corporation, right? Hostile takeover. Which is exactly what it is, right? But we don't want to give up our goods. We don't want to give up our gold or our silver, our minerals in our country, our wealth of the country. We don't want to give that up. Too bad. You have to give it up, otherwise we won't protect you anymore. It's like the mob. It's like the mob when you've got a little shop and you've got your shop on the high street. You're doing okay. You've got your employees. You've got some money coming in. Everyone's happy. The customer service is great. Then you get some guy comes in one day and says, nice little business you got going here. Hate to see it burn down. You'd be like, what are you talking about, burn down? Well, dangerous world we're living in, and it could burn down tomorrow. But I'll tell you what, we'll protect you from your shop being burned down by thugs and scallywags and, scumbags and terrorists. We'll stop that happening, but you have to pay us to do that. Okay? But then if you listen to the government when they're talking about we have to stop the mob, who are they? What's the difference? America, we're home of the free and land of the brave, and we've got our military to protect everybody. It's not just America. It's Britain, it's France, it's Germany, you name it. They're all exactly the same. The politicians are the fucking psychopaths and sociopaths that are the ones who are pretending to pull the trigger, but they're being told to do what they're by their corporate masters. The ones who donate to their political fund to get them elected, you see. Much like this clown shoe Keir Starmer that we've got running this country at the moment. If you say something terrible on Facebook, we'll put you in prison. It's a fear tactic to keep you. If you say something, we'll lock you up. Because they want people to be scared of standing up and saying their piece and saying, fuck off. I'm not going to listen to you fucking psychopaths anymore, and I'm not going to be told how to live or what to do by you. So in order to keep people from standing up and saying fuck off, they go, if you say the wrong thing on Facebook or X or Twitter or whatever we're calling that now, or we have to shut down Twitter because you can't have free speech, we're going to tell you what you can say. And don't mention the foreigners. Don't mention the immigrants. Now, okay. I'm an immigrant to this country, okay? I came here in 1999 with 200 quid in my pocket on a holiday. 200 quid for a holiday. No job, no place to live. I came here for a holiday with my ex-girlfriend and we broke up And I came here and decided I was going to stay. So I went and got a job, found a place to live, paid my way, asked for nothing. I wanted nothing from anybody except an opportunity, and I created my own opportunity with how much I worked and how much I was willing to give to this nation that accepted me into it. You with me? Which is what we should expect from people that want to come and live in your country. So if people want to come and live in this country or in America or in Australia, wherever it is, and you want to contribute, you want to work, you want to contribute to the nation, you want to start a business or you want to work, then I'm all for it, 100% behind it. And wherever they're coming from, doesn't matter if they don't speak the language. I've employed people who don't speak a word of English before, many, many times, because they want to work and contribute. If that's you and you're an immigrant to the country, then as far as I'm concerned, open arms. Welcome you with open arms if you're willing to come in here and work your heart out to create something for yourself and give something to the country that's taken you in. Okay? All for it. 100% behind it. I'm an immigrant. My wife is an immigrant. We've got our children that have grown up here. We contribute, we pay tax, and we ask for nothing from the government. Nothing. Stay out of my fucking way. That's all I ask. But what's happening now is you're having a divide and conquer moment again, where people that are coming here on a boat with brand new life jackets, by the way. I just left my country with nothing. Mobile phone I've got, and clothes. Paid somebody to bring me here with a brand new life jacket. No passport or any other identifying documents, of course. But they've been given places to stay, an allowance. But this is the thing. It is all about dividing and conquering. It is dividing the people to say, well, look at these immigrants that are coming here. They've been giving everything and we've got nothing. The roads are destroyed. The country, the economy is in turmoil. And you're taking people from outside the country and giving them benefits to the people of that country who paid into the system, haven't got. It disincentivizes people to work. They're like, why the fuck would I work when I can just go on the dole? So, it comes back to the on-demand, doesn't it? Where they want people reliant on the government, because then once you're reliant on the government, then you're a voter base to keep voting you in. Because if you're getting everything from the government, you're not going to vote that fucking government out. You're going to vote for them because they're giving you what you want. Right? Now, what happens when these corporations go to war with each other? We have a situation where we are right now. Back in 2020, we had the same situation. We had a breakdown in the supply chains because nothing was coming out of China, where everything's made apparently. The shipping was stopped. All the ships were off out of the ports because it was too dangerous because of the flu. And supply stopped. What happens to the on-demand? Now, what happens to the on-demand if, for instance, the banking system gets hacked? Oh dear. My money that's on demand, that's real money, Chris. You don't understand. You see, the pound, that's real money. That digital money nonsense, that's not real. How many people carry cash? Very little. Very little. Most people, beep, they pay with their Apple Pay or their phone or their card. Digital payments, right? Now, if, for instance, the banking system gets hacked and you don't have access to your money, you're in the shop, you've got all your shopping there. Oh, for some reason the card machine's not working, you're going to have to pay in cash. I don't have any cash. We'll go to the cash machine. You go to the cash machine. Sorry, problem with the bank. You can't have any cash. What am I going to do for dinner tonight? How am I going to feed my kids? Or you've gone to the fuel station, you put fuel in the car already, you're going to pay. Sorry, we can't accept there's no card payments at the moment, you have to pay in cash. Can't get cash. What's going to happen? All right? We have a breakdown very, very quickly. What's going to happen if these on-demand services are no longer available? Let's just say Netflix goes down the fucking toilet tomorrow. But I've paid my subscription. What about all those movies that I bought? Gone. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. So, we're coming to a situation now where we have wars in the Middle East and threats of war in the Middle East You have war in Ukraine, Russia. China is, threatening Taiwan because they want the control of the microchips, because they're not in control of the microchips. Taiwan is a separate nation, apparently. Who decided that? Well, America did, and Britain, and the powers of the world, the Western world, have decided that Taiwan is their own nation. Who am I to say? Who gets to decide who gets to draw up the country's borders? Oh, but we shouldn't have borders in the first place, Chris. Okay, so we should have free movement of people around the world, from anywhere to anywhere, for any reason, yeah? Okay. How are you going to support that? Those people, like, if you had free movement of people around the world, no one had to have a passport, no one could go anywhere, everyone could just go anywhere they wanted. How is this country going to support those people when they come here? Now we're heading for turmoil. I've been talking about this for 4 years now, probably longer actually. Probably longer I've been talking about it, but 4 years I've been doing videos for. So we're heading for a point, I think, before the election, we're going to have some kind of tumultuous event. COVID wasn't big enough, but it was a nice little, for people like you and I, it was the ability for us to see, oh shit, we're too reliant on a system that could break down at any moment. COVID should have taught you something. If it didn't, it should have. So if we're too reliant on a system that could break down at any moment, then you are a slave, or you're trapped in that system because you don't have any way to feed yourself, to clothe yourself, to house yourself, to water yourself, to do anything for yourself, because the system is controlling your movements through this on-demand society that we're living in. Now, in other nations, I've been to Nigeria in Africa. I've been through Asia, Thailand, China, Indonesia. I've been all through Europe. I've been through America. I've travelled a lot. And when you go to places that are called third world nations, or developing nations as they call them nowadays, because you can't call them third world, developing nations are much more self-reliant, in that they'll find a way to make things work, because they don't have the handout society that we have here, the on-demand, the easy lifestyle that we have here, the on-demand everything. But if we lose that on-demand for any reason, if there's a supply chain shock, or if there's another war, or a hack of the financial system, or the undersea cables get cut by Russia, which means no internet, how are people going to do anything? And what is going to happen in that scenario where some major event, be it a hack or internet goes out or whatever it is, how are people going to manage and live through this this moment without it getting super violent and killing each other? Now, I as I said, I lived in London for 18 years. I lived in France for a couple of years as well. In my time in London, I saw pockets of society that are very, very wealthy, interacted with them. And I saw pockets of society that are very, very poor, interacted with them. I've been at both ends of the spectrum. I've been very fortunate in my life. I've worked like a donkey to get where I am. I've been given nothing, absolutely nothing. No one gave me anything. Oh, the white privilege, Chris, huh? No one gave me anything, And I've managed to keep my head above water. I was speaking with my friend the other day, Mike, and I said to him, the responsibility it takes to look after yourself, and this is what when we raise our children, we try and teach them. The amount of responsibility it takes to be able to feed and clothe and have a roof over your head yourself is massive. To go through your life and to be able to function in this world, to be able to feed yourself, clothe yourself, have somewhere to live, and all those kind of things, support yourself, is massive. Then, if you're a man, then you're taking on a wife and maybe a family, children. That responsibility is tenfold, because not only do you have to look after yourself, but you've also got to provide for your family and the people that are depending on you. Then if you want to take that to the next level, my friend Mike started a business, a bunch of employees, where he now has those dependents as well, depending on him to create a business that is going to give them what they need, which is food, clothing, money, to be able to support their needs. So when you have people that are going out there and creating businesses or corporations or whatever, you know, it takes a massive amount of guts and determination and willingness to go above and beyond just taking care of yourself in this world and taking on the responsibility of more people is a massive undertaking. But the only way I can see that we could possibly get through this time where we have this turmoil and this upheaval in our society to move from where we are now, being dependent on a system that could break at any moment, to being self-reliant, is to be back in touch with the world that we live in and the needs of our society. Now, we have people in our society that won't contribute, have never contributed, and will never contribute. You know, some is because they're just lazy and they don't want to contribute and they just want to take advantage of other people's work ethic. Then you have other people that are sick, infirm, you know, or unable to work for whatever reason. But yeah, and we have to take that into consideration as we develop models of how a society can flourish, given that there are a lot of variables in how this is all structured. Now, what's happening in the US at the moment? We have the elections coming up. We've got the incumbent whore, prostitute, camel toe, Harris, and yes, used to be a prostitute, well, probably still is, who knows. And Dementia Joe, who is a dementia-riddled potato that is escaping any kind of punishment for anything he's done because, well, it's not his fault. He's just a tired old man. But yet he can still run the country. And then you've got the other guy that they've slandered for 8 years, who used to be loved by everybody. He was a TV personality, businessman, billionaire. Oh, but Chris has been bankrupt 6 times. You know what? You know, how many times I've heard this argument? Oh, he's been bankrupt 6 times, Chris. How do you learn things? We've been through this 100 times, but I'll say it again. How do you learn things? Through failure. Any successful person, I mean any successful person is going to have failures in their business career. They will. They always will. And that's how you learn. That's how you go, okay, I know what not to do next time. So the fact that the guy's been bankrupt 6 times and then come back and made it again should speak volumes about this is a guy who knows how to handle going through a collapse of the empire and building it back up again. Now, initially, Trump was hated by everybody. Oh, Trump, he's a racist, he's a xenophobe, he's a sexist, blah, 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 he raped people, blah, blah, he's been found guilty of all this shit, and, you know, all the crimes that he's committed. You know, Joe Biden did the same as what Trump did, and the Trump was charged with and found guilty of, apparently. Biden did the same thing, and they said, well, we're not going to charge him because he's an old dithering idiot. Who didn't know what he was doing. He's an old man, so well, we'll just let it go. Equal application of the law? Really? Really? Now, I'm not stumping for Trump, but there's a lot of people that are. RFK Jr. is one of those people. And what is his key tenet that his platform is all about? MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. The health of a nation is dependent, is important for that nation's GDP to go up. Because if you have unhealthy people that can't work for whatever reason because they're sick all the time, because maybe they went and had the thing in their arm, that experimental thing, yeah, just making them sick all the time. I don't know why I'm sick all the time. I went and had another booster and I'm still sick. So we have to change the way that we do things in this world. We're too reliant on pharmaceuticals. Oh yeah, my kid's got too much energy. Give him a pill. See, we'll sit still in class. We have to change our education system. We have to change the way we think about health. And health doesn't come out of the end of a needle. You know, food, You know, our food supply, poison water, poison food, all the shit that we're spraying on our food. We have to think about, as we're going to go through some kind of event. And as we go through that event, we have to come out the other side with a better model of how we're going to structure things to make things better going forward. And one of those things that we have to focus on, health of our society, so that we have more people that can work and contribute to society. We have to focus on how our money creation. We have to focus on, the monopolization of resources and business. All these things have to be rethought. Schooling, what are we teaching our children? What we're teaching our children, how does that prepare them for the life in the world? You know, my kids, I say to my kids, what are you learning about computers? Nothing. You know, we're going into an increasingly digital society, and they're not learning anything that's preparing them for the world that we're living in. You know, so we have to think about this, and we have to think about that in terms of who we're putting our faith in to take over and run the world on our behalf, whilst we get on with the business of looking after ourselves, our wives, our partners for those who are not in a heterosexual relationship, let's put it that way. We have to, our dependents, which is not just our children, but also the people who depend on us, business people that employ them. So we have to think about that before we start thinking about, oh yes, but we have to have the first woman president in America. You know, identity politics. Anyone? So, enough rambling about all that nonsense. My point today is, we are at a tipping point, we're at a turning point in our evolution as a species of people. How are we going to do everything from here on? How you do anything is how you do everything. So we have to decide, do you want to let the threat of you can't say those words hang over your head, which means you are a little slave that's being told what to do, how to live, what to say? Do you want to live like that? Or do you want to stand up for yourself and say, fuck off? We can't keep on doing the same thing and expecting a different result. We can't trust these people. I haven't seen a single country in the world that the leaders are trustworthy. Maybe, I don't know enough about it. Milei in Argentina, somebody can tell me he's doing the wrong thing. Maybe he is. I've heard that he was aligned with the World Economic Forum, but with the changes he's making in his country, it looks pretty good. Now, as far as you and I are concerned, the reason I started doing these videos is because I wanted to stand against this oppression and this tyranny that we've been living under for my entire life anyway. And probably all of our lives, we've been slaves to a financial system where they can create money out of nothing. So we have to decide if that's the way we want to live and we want to continue to live, or if we want to change things. And if we want to change things, how do we go from where we are now, where we've been constantly poisoned and told, you will be a good little boy or we'll throw you in the prison, threats of violence by the people that are supposed to be working for us, or do we want to go in a different direction and have sovereignty over our bodies, over our money, and over the way that we want to live in our lives, as long as it's not negatively affecting other people? Which way do we want to go? It's up to us. We have to make that decision before it's too late. So I urge you, what do you want? Think about that very, very carefully, and how are we going to go about getting it? Because I know what I'm doing. I've told you for 4 years now how I want to live and what my thoughts are. But what are your thoughts? What do you think is the best option here? How do you think we move past this, and what are you going to do about it? Raise your voice. Speak out. Don't be afraid of being locked up. I mean, if somebody wants to come and knock on my door and take me away from my Facebook posts, great. I'll live stream it. And I want to know what I'm being charged with before they take me away. And if there's no crime I've committed, you can guarantee that I'm not going to go quietly. If they're going to take me out anyway, well, you know what, I'm going to put a bit of fight up. And, after the surgery, it's probably not going to be the best way to do it, but I'm still going to do it anyway. All that said, thank you very much for joining me today. It's wonderful to be back out here walking around in the forest and be back on my feet again and speaking to you amazing people, or speaking to myself really, but speaking to you amazing people out there who have got the courage and the wherewithal to stand against what's going on in the world and to question the reality that we're presented with. So, go out into the world, do good and be good, and you can change the world with the way that you think, the way that you act, the words that you use. If people need to be told to fuck off, tell them to fuck off! Don't stand for it! Nothing's going to change if you don't. So, go out and do things that's going to change the world. You can do it, we can all do it together if we have the wherewithal to stand together side by side and say we're not going to take it anymore. Now, most important, look after yourself, look after each other, and I look forward to seeing you real soon. Take care. Ciao for now.